All right, guys, welcome to episode number 62 of the Conquer Me podcast. I just want to tell you guys, you are in store for an incredible treat. You're going to be blessed and you're going to be challenged today, probably at a level that you have never been challenged before, but that's okay. Here's my promise to you. If you'll lean into this episode, your life will be changed when you walk away. And now I want to say, I don't really feel bad about setting that frame because I watched this dude last night pour into people, or yesterday, for 9 hours straight. So the information is inside. I'm excited to pull it out. I'm sitting here with Nick Santonastasso. Nick is not only an incredible speaker, highly sought after transformational speaker who's been on stages with the greats in the game, Tony Robbins, Mylett, these types of people who are icons. And frankly, a lot of my heroes, right? This is kind of his personal network. So it's incredible to have the opportunity to chat with him. But there's something else that makes him very, very unique. Aside from all of his incredible accomplishments of being a speaker, being a coach, being a best-selling author, being a bodybuilder, and if you're not watching this, if you're just listening, Nick was born with no legs and only one arm. So aside from him being an incredible success story, excuse remover, he also has that challenge that he's been faced with. So Nick, I just want to say, man, it's an honor, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, brother. That was a great intro. I need to cut that for me. Let's go. Let's ride into it.
That's right, man. Before we really jump in, dude, I just want to say, like, this time is incredibly special for me. And here's why. About a year and a half ago, when I decided to start a podcast, I had all these limiting beliefs, right? Like, who's going to listen to your story? What are you going to say? What do you really have to offer? All the stuff that we struggle with as entrepreneurs and hard-charging people. And so as I'm thinking through it and people are asking me like, well, Jay, what's the podcast going to be about? I said, man, it would be a dream if I could just sit across the table from people who have faced what seems like insurmountable challenges and overcome those challenges, and just to extract those lessons from them and then be able to share those with other people.
Yeah.
So dude, I just want to say, like, this is a dream come true.
Let's go. I'm fired up, man.
It gets me just emotional thinking about it, man, because it's a year and a half later. And I'm sitting here with you, one of the most sought out speakers and people in the space that I'm passionate about. So dude, just thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah,
really
let's
excited,
go.
Man.
Let's go. I'm excited. And I love what you said too, is there's a ton of information and you're excited to pull it out of me. So I'm all yours. I'm a jukebox, whatever we can do.
Well, good, man. So look, if I don't typically do this, but if it's okay, what I would like to do is kind of take you through some questions, right? Yeah. Normally it's just we get on and we roll, but dude, I've started to kind of understand your story a little bit, and I know that there's so much to pull out, and I don't want the audience to miss some of these things. So if it's cool, I'm going to walk with you through some questions. And guys, I want to say this: if you're listening to this, you need to listen all the way to the end, okay? Because I'm saving some of these bombs for the very end, so you do not want to miss the end of this show. So stick around. But Nick, let's start out, man. So obviously, you've got this challenge of no legs, one arm. And guys, to be fair, like, not only does the dude only have one arm, but he doesn't have a hand. He's got one finger on one hand, right? So if you think you're having a challenging day, I just want you to understand that how much more challenging would it be if you didn't have any legs and you didn't have an arm and you had one finger on one hand, right? So I want to set that up. But let's start with childhood, man. So obviously, you're born with this rare seems like condition. I haven't seen anybody else with this. Well, I take that back. I've seen one dude. Yep. I think he's like Australian or something, a pastor maybe. What was the diagnosis?
The simple terms. There is like a nerdy medical term that I probably don't know how to pronounce.
Right.
But it's called hand-heart syndrome.
Okay.
And it either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. And so at the time of my birth in 1996, I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen it happen to.
Correct.
And out of the 12, 8 of those babies passed away due to undeveloped organs. And so even before I was born, the doctors looked at my parents and said he has about a 30% chance to live.
Wow.
They tried to sway my parents into aborting me. They also tried to, if they were going to move forward with the pregnancy, they wanted to institutionalize me and put me somewhere else. And my parents denied all of that. My mom, she has a faith tattooed on her wrist. And she just leaned into faith, and they said, we're going to see where this takes us, but we're going to give him a shot at life. I think about that a lot, by the way. Even me, when I'm having a bad day or I'm having a low moment, I'm like, this is all additional. Everything's all additional, even for all of us. But like in specific for me, it's like regardless of how much money I make this month or how many people are impacted or the travel or anything, it's like this is all bonus. It's like
supposed to
it's like the bonus round, right?
Everyone basically counted you out at that point.
100%.
Except for your amazing parents.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. Okay, so.
Yeah, so born with hand-heart syndrome, and then when I was born, they did tests of my organs. The organs came back 100% healthy, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs. So I think about that as well. It's like, look at the chances of me being born. Okay, I survived birth, and then they do tests of my organs, and nothing's wrong with my organs.
When everyone else had issues.
Yeah, right? eight of those babies, right, had complications with their organs, and so I was 100% healthy, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs, and we were off to the races.
Man, that's incredible. All right, so you already came into the world with challenges and already overcoming those, right, which is awesome. Now, what were some of the hardest times as a child?
I think this is very interesting. I always say you can have all your arms and all your legs, yet you can still be handicapped and crippled by your upbringing.
Let's go, man.
And the reason why I say that is because most of our beliefs in our model of the world was cultivated between 0 and 10 or 0 and 7 years old, because your brain is in theta state. It's the door to the subconscious mind. You know, meaning you popped out of your mother and they said dog, and you said dog, and they said that's a bird, and you said that's a bird, and then they said you can't afford that, and you're like, I can't afford that. Like, most of your thoughts aren't yours, you picked them up from someone else, right? It's all conditioning. And so for me, my parents took a pretty interesting approach that I think enabled me versus disabled me, but I am the baby of the family, so I was the baby. At that time, I had 2 sisters and 1 brother, and we talked about yesterday the art of the frame, you know, how you position things and the lens that you make people see you through. And my parents didn't tell my siblings that I was different, like coming home. They literally just plopped me on the ground, unraveled me. And, you know, like, especially with kids, if you don't emphasize something, they just think it's normal, right? That's conditioning. But if you were like, hey, like, you bring your baby brother home and he's really fragile and he's got, like, they didn't do any of that. They were just like, yo, here's your baby brother, right? And they unraveled me, and the first thing that my siblings said were like, "Cool," you know, like what is that? That's so cool.
What is that?
You know, like they didn't know, and so that's how I was introduced. That's how I was introduced to my family. And to answer your question, I don't even remember things being hard that young, because that was just life, right? And I will say that, right? It's one thing to be born into this situation. It's another thing when you had your limbs and then you lose them. Like, that's a whole different obstacle, like vets or anyone who loses a limb has to go through. But my parents took the approach of, okay, if we make everything cushioned and we put stepping stools everywhere and loops on things, like, homeboy's gonna be smacked with reality when he leaves the house. Right? And that was their intention, is to set me up for success when they weren't around. My dad was immediately creating financial plans and trying to store money away because he didn't know what his son was going to be able to do or what he wasn't going to be able to do. And his whole intention was, when I was born, my dad told me, he was holding me, you know, crying, and he said, I promise till the day I die, I will be your arms and legs. Man. And so I'm he's making business moves and putting money away and setting things aside because he has no idea what's going to happen, right? And I just think that's profound. And I don't know what I would do because I was never in that situation. But a few examples were when I was old enough, I don't know exactly how old, but when I was old enough, my parents would get to the point where they would put my clothes in front of me and they'd be like, okay, like, figure it out, right? And imagine how hard that is as a parent to, like, intentionally make your son who's limb different struggle, you know? But I guess they knew, or maybe they didn't know. They were just winging it, right? Maybe they're doing it janky, right? But
I'm tired of getting you dressed, bro. Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. Like, you're way too much work.
Giving them all this credit. They might have just been like, I'm tired of dealing with you.
Yeah, but I was the last. They already had 3 kids, so maybe they did some split testing.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, they learned some things, do nots and do's. And so, like, you know, that's how they push me to put my clothes on, or eventually they put food in front of me and they'd be like, okay, like, here's a spoon, and, like, try to figure it out. And I always tell people that was so empowering. I didn't know what they were doing. They maybe didn't know what they were doing to the depths of it. But at a very early age, I became solution oriented. I was forced to become solution oriented. So it wasn't like focusing on the problem. And of course, I remember getting very upset, pissed off that I couldn't do things, very competitive nature. Like, there was definitely a competitive nature. And I wouldn't give up until I got the thing done. Yeah. Anything as a kid. And so, of course, finally I learned how to dress myself and I learned how to feed myself. And Also going into the school system, now that I look at it, I just actually got this download. Like my dad became my bus driver. My mom worked in the preschool. Oh, now I see. They had a tap on the pulse there. I see what you did. But they were just around, and then I also had an amazing community. And the other approach as well is, or the other mindset that I've gotten. And by the way, for those that are listening, the whole intention for this interview, my hallucination is to help you download a mental syntax. Right? Like I always give the analogy, like if we were in a video game, which maybe we are, but if we were in a video game and we were walking around and you were in town square and all of a sudden a knight with no legs of an arm is riding a horse, he's got the princess, he's got a bag full of gold, you'd be like, what cheat codes does that guy have? Because he has less, but he has more. So my intention, and your intention as well, is to help extract this mental syntax so you can think in a specific way. Because all of you have mechanics, but your business or your life will never outgrow your psychology, right? Let's go. So I became solution-oriented, but also I was very familiar with failure. It was everywhere. It was part of the process. It wasn't this foreign thing. And if you were in an upbringing where you were coddled or they never wanted you to fall, they never wanted you to take risks, you're not really exposed to failure and build that resilience or build that grit. So for me, failure was a friend very early on, and I knew it was part of the process. And so I think that was a superpower. Does it make sense?
Guys, we could be done right there. Like, I think that's it. So good, dude. So like the whole idea of the show, it's called Conquer Me, right? And like the message behind it is, I think about me as a kid, totally different circumstances, but our world is our world. And what we think is big and traumatic and whatever is big and traumatic. So like, I can't compare my story to yours, just like you can't compare yours to the next person. But for me, growing up in drug-infested trailer parks and a lot of chaos and like trauma and getting addicted to drugs at a very early age, I realized that when I started to come out of that like I'm the obstacle. It's my beliefs about my experience in the past. It's my frames. Like I've got to conquer me. That is what it is, and that's the circumstances. And just like you guys, if you're watching this, you've got your own set of circumstances. Life's probably not all, just maybe you have your arms and legs, but you might still be getting your ass kicked in some areas of your life. And this is the call, guys. Like you just heard him drop some major mindset bombs on you guys. It's about conquering you. It's not about the challenges that you're facing. It's about how you show up to those challenges. How are you going to respond? Are you going to succumb to the pressure? Or are you going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be solution oriented. I'm going to figure this out because why not? Like, what's the other way?
100%.
So I love that. And in a lot of ways, it put you in position to win. Like, I'm in no way going to wish that I don't have my arms and legs, but I certainly can see the value that put into your life, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And now, here's the thing is, you had a decision to make, and you have decisions to make every day in the same way. You could have said, hey, you know what? This sucks. But I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm still going to get through life and move on. But there's limits. Yeah. There has to be limits, right? Like, how are you going to be a bodybuilder, bro? Like, to me, I wouldn't even go to that place. So you've had to continually, I would imagine, and I want you to speak to this, reinvent yourself over and over and over, and reimagine your possibilities over and over. What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would start off with most of my success came from burying pain. Most of my success came from like, I'm gonna build big things so people love me. So people like, I'm finally enough. They finally pick me. I get love that way, right? So let me just like pre-frame with that is most of what you see was to destroy that inner child or to bury that inner child so I didn't have to heal that stuff or to run away from pain, right? And so, you know, growing up, by the time that I got in middle school, bro, to be honest, I didn't really realize I was different till middle school. Like, I don't think like, like maybe there's some, but like it was just normal. Like Nick was just Nick. He was just doing his thing. And when, I guess elementary school like eventually gets a little bit tough, but I was just, this is my body. Like people have to understand like I was born this way. Like this is the way that I was operating. But when I got into middle school, I believe middle school and high school are like the most savage, judgmental times of your lives, right? Like we were talking yesterday at the speaking masterclass. It's one thing to speak to adults. You really want to practice speaking, go speak in front of kids, right? Because they're savages. They're just like, you know, like, are they going to throw tomatoes at me?
Right,
you know, like, what do they got? And so by the time that I got in middle school, you know, I see my friends playing sports, or I see my friends riding bikes and I can't ride bikes. You know, I remember I hit my parents with a question of like, why can't I ride a bike like the other kids? You know,
Really?
and they have to like explain like, Nick, you don't have legs.
Well, if you haven't noticed, you're missing some valuable pieces.
Yeah, so you can't ride a bike, you don't have legs. But then again, like my dad went and got me a 3-wheeled bike with hand cycle, and I had a bike. So like he was like always like, yo, what do you want? Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So like my dad was very solution oriented as well as my mom. And so when I got into middle school and high school, I guess I started to know I was different, or they put me in a separate box because like I rode on the shorter bus with mentally challenged kids and autistic and Down syndrome. So like that was the box that they put me in. They would give me, even though I didn't need it, they would give me extra time on tests and put me in a different room. Like they definitely like, I was definitely like, okay, like I don't understand this. Like I'm fast, I'm smart, I'm the first one done with the test. Like I'm good, I'm writing. Like I already learned how to write. Like I was ripping it. You know, like I was doing everything. And also like I had a sister who, she was a gymnast. So like how I get on chairs, like handstand, flip up, how to get on the toilet, like everybody.
It was incredible to see, by the way. So like I'm still blown away. I mean, I've been following you for a while, and I've seen you like back in your day chase people as a zombie and do all the YouTube stuff. But even yesterday at the event, it was amazing to watch you get on the stage. Yeah. Because obviously I'm like, is someone going to put him up there? Like, how's he going to get up there? And you like threw the arm down and flipped up, and I'm like, holy shit, like what just happened? How did you do that?
Yeah, real fast.
And then seeing you eat and like all the things that you've had to figure out. So yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I could see that.
Yeah, so middle school was pretty tough. And talking about reinventing yourself, I think I was always put in a box. But essentially, you put yourself in your own box. Yeah. Right? And so if you adopt other people's beliefs and other people's things that they say about you, then you create that own box, or whatever you believe is about yourself. Perception is projection. So whatever I perceive, I'm going to project into the world. So for example, if I believe that I'm unattractive, when I walk or hop into a room, I'm going to project that I'm unattractive, and people are going to feel that. They don't even know what it is.
Subconsciously,
Exactly. Or if I perceive that all women are cheaters, then I'm going to project it into the world. I'm only going to see not so good women, and I'm going to attract more cheaters into my life. The brain is the best detective, and it's always looking for evidence, or it'll create false evidence to prove yourself right. That's why you better have good beliefs. So the example that we gave was, if you know someone who's like, I'm always unlucky, or I always get the short end of the stick, they can have a full stick and snap the stick to prove that they have the short end of the stick to prove themselves right.
Right. So guys, I want you to hear this. And I really want these things to land, because he's just dropping gold for you guys. And it's easy to miss this because he does this. They call him Baby Yoda for a reason, right? It's just bomb after bomb after bomb after nugget after nugget. What he's saying, guys, is the way you see yourself, everyone is going to try to put you into a box if you let them. And if you don't have a certain level of awareness, you will easily be put into that box, and you will show up according to that frame. Okay, so if we think we're not good enough, and we continue to play that loop in our head because of something that happened 15 years ago that was just a situation. It shouldn't have defined us, but we don't have the right level of awareness, and we repeat that story over and over and over again that we're not good enough. Guess what's going to happen? We're not going to be good enough. We're going to fail at everything we do. We're not going to have good relationships. We're not going to be able to be successful in our business. So like, I want to drive home that, yes, everyone will try to put you in a box, and your circumstances will create a box for you. However, it's the level of awareness and like the inner work that has to happen for you to understand that you don't have to go in that box. It's a choice.
100%.
So it's so good, man, because it ties into identity, which I'm a huge, I love psychology, and I love getting into identity because I looked at myself a certain way for a long time, and I'm still sorting through things just like we all are. But I had no idea how much those belief systems played into my results today. Like that happened years ago. How is that still showing up? So powerful stuff, man.
100%. I love the way that you reinforce the point too, because sometimes I could just blow past some nuggets.
This is normal stuff for you, man. So
right, and and so going back to identity as well, I think I wore a lot of identities, which we can get into. I wore a lot of hats, but also I wanted to be like, to segue, I wanted to be like my brother. My brother was this meathead, you know, like jacked up wrestler, like a little scary. He was like a honey badger. He was 5'6", but like, man, you know, like jacked up, like Italian, like just just like scrapping. Like he was a dog, you know. And I was like, oh, my brother, you know, like it was just my idol. And so getting into middle school and high school to reinforce what you said, like we can have a specific experience, and because of that experience, we then develop beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of. And so there was a specific experience for me that I always remember. And I still remember her name. I still remember what she looks like all that stuff. And I was on a school bus. I was on a shorter bus. Don't actually know why she was on the shorter bus, but no judgment. And she was making fun of everybody on the school bus. Like all the kids that are not, they're easily physically challenged or mentally challenged. And at that time, I don't have the awareness or the level of consciousness to know that she's actually really hurting, so she has to take it out of the nuts. But I don't know that. And she looks me in my eyes and says, Nick, I don't even have to make fun of you. Your body's too screwed up anyway. Like, look at you. Man. So it's one thing from that coming from another male, but it was coming from a female. Right. And now, because of that experience, my model of the world is how she sees me is how all women see me, or how all girls see me. I guess I am disgusting. I guess I'll never have a girlfriend because I have no legs and an arm. Well, I'll never go to my junior prom. I'll never go to my senior prom, which I didn't. Didn't even attempt. Didn't go to any of the functions.
Well, why would you if you believe that about yourself?
100%. Right? That was my model of the world, right? And I mentioned, you know, humans will change for two reasons. We'll change for pain or we'll change for pleasure, but humans will always run away from pain faster than we'll run towards pleasure. We're always trying to get away from pain, right? It's like if you have a toothache, like you just want to go to the doctor and get the toothache handled. And so, but what we also need to understand, and this is where our timelines are very aligned, is pain is the leverage that we need in order to change. It's the catalyst, right? All of us listening, maybe you're listening right now, you can think back to a moment in your life where you experienced so much pain, whether it was in a relationship or your body or drugs, where you hit a threshold where you said, that's it, no more, I'm never gonna be that person, and you've hit a threshold. It's the same example of like if you've ever drank an alcohol to the point where it came out like your nose and your mouth and your butt, you know, like you're like, I'm never touching Fireball again, right? Or never touching that specific food again.
Everybody's had that experience with Fireball.
So you have this negative association to it, so you don't go back to it. So for me, I didn't realize in the moment, but the pain of her rejecting me as a woman was the foundation to my success. Because I became a savage. I became a savage in the sense of like, I'm gonna become I'm gonna do all this stuff. I'm gonna become a wrestler. I'm gonna become an athlete. I'm gonna get jacked. I'm gonna become a bodybuilder. And all of it came from like, I told you.
Pain,
I told you,
right?
mother.
Insecurity, you know, like, and pain. Really.
100%. You know, I'm gonna build this persona, and I'm gonna do things way better than all of you with all your legs and all your arms. I'm gonna show you what's good. And so I think I always, and still to this day, which is calculated, but I still have a chip on my shoulder because from the moment I was born, they discredited me. They threw me to the side. You know, my joke is like the doctor said I wouldn't live, that I wouldn't be able to dress myself, feed myself. Now those doctors are dead and I'm rich.
Let's go.
Right?
Man.
So who really won? Right?
That's right.
So I didn't take their diagnosis, but from there, that pain of women pushed me to become a wrestler, which was, I think, a massive moment in my life where I started to shift and started to build confidence.
So there's some pivotal points here. So basically we're born, we don't know any better. Your parents were amazing at just facilitating you to be a problem solver and to figure it out. Then you get around kids, which are savages, and they're gonna just do whatever. And you start to get some rejection. Like, okay, this dude isn't normal, and you start to get in your head and kind of that shows up in your life. Then you're on a bus with this chick, defining moment, right? One of the defining moments. She makes a comment to you. What separates the person that just goes, well, I guess she's right, and the person that goes, you know what? Thank you for that. Now I'm gonna go win. Like, what's the psychology behind that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, like you said, the level of awareness. Like, you only know what you know. And if you don't do personal development, like, we weren't taught this work. Like, we're not taught emotional intelligence in school. We're taught the I'm not even going to get into
Yeah,
that.
I know.
But
Trust me. That's a whole nother episode.
That's stuff
bro.
that don't even matter, right? And they probably created it.
Yeah.
By the way, if you can control history, you can control the narrative. We can, you know, like I don't got to get to that rabbit hole. So I think the difference is awareness, the level of consciousness or the level of support that you have. But also, we can even go down a rabbit hole. It's all about your upbringing and what you saw around you. So, for example, my dad still and was a hard ass, right? Italian dude, hard ass.
Okay.
And based off his childhood and the way that he was brought up, that showing weakness or showing emotion is weak. So I see a man who I've never seen him cry. I've never seen him break down.
Wow.
Goes to work, does the thing, supports the family, like doesn't miss a beat, still goes to be sick. So my model of the world is be hard, be a man, don't feel anything,
Right.
or don't show it.
Yeah.
And so while I'm going through all of this, my brain is like, okay, keep this to yourself because you don't want to be a burden to your family. You don't want to be a burden to your sister. Like my younger sister didn't even know that I had suicidal thoughts until she saw a podcast when I was an adult.
Holy smokes, man.
Because that was just my model of the world. So I would cry in the shower or somewhere where no one can see me, and then I put on the smile because also Nick, look at my baby, he's so positive. Look, he's just doing life so
and
great.
You felt like you needed to
I was
keep
the glue,
that.
bro.
Yeah.
I was the glue of the family.
Wow.
So like if I brought my problems, like then like everybody's sad because like, oh, poor Nick, you know, like he's struggling with stuff. So I'm also the glue and I'm holding frame. I don't even know that I'm holding frame, and I'm holding frame, right? But I would have those moments where I break, or have those moments where I would express with maybe someone in school, like my aide, like I spent clearly 8 hours with my aide, which was a good friend. We still text to today. Wow. And so, yeah, I was holding a specific frame. So let me just break this down for everybody listening. Is your model of the world is also created by what you see. So if you have an upbringing and you see your parents fighting and yelling, you'll probably go fight and yell with your significant other when you have one.
So true.
Or if you see your parents divorce, you don't have evidence that a harmonious relationship is possible. So essentially, on an unconscious level, if you don't do the work and you just walk through life and you're just unconscious, you are going to be the same way as your parents.
And hate them for it the whole time.
And resent them.
And then end up just like them.
100% resent them for it. But like understanding, you have to analyze and observe, like, I like that about you and I don't like this about you. I want to be more of that and I want to be less of that. For example, there's a ton of things about my parents that like I'm like, thank you for. Like I always saw my dad tipping people. So I tip people. I'm a big tipper. You know, here. People that don't even deserve a tip, I'm like, I love it. Here, like it makes me feel good. So I see that, I'm always the guy like grabbing the bill, you know, like that's just all for my dad, right? And then my mom, on the other hand, too, is like, my mom was like, oh, money's cool. I just want you happy. You know, like, Nick, are you happy speaking? Yeah, I'm happy, Mom. Or happy? Are you happy pranking? Yeah, I'm happy, Mom. Like, okay, yeah. You know, like that was my mom. Like it was like the yin to the yang. My dad, on the other hand, was like, yo, you got to learn how to make money on your own. Told me straight up. Was like, you ain't gonna sit around. If you think you're gonna sit around and like just collect money, like that ain't the way.
Wow.
Like, and I don't even really share that, but like my dad was like, you gotta do something. We have an inside joke with my brother-in-law. I was like, you gotta do something. He was like, yo, you gotta do something. Like you can't just sit around and play video games all day.
Thank
so
God for that.
Yeah, so he was hard.
Yeah.
So just to reinforce, we can go wherever, but based on what you see, you become, if you're not aware of it. And our whole intention, it's one thing if you're born into a poverty mindset. It's another thing if you die in a poverty mindset. That's your own fault.
Oh, man.
So we have to start taking accountability for our mental syntax. We have to start taking accountability for our work. By the way, real men know how to heal things. They don't always soothe. They don't always hold it in. They don't because look, right now, mental health, especially men, you have depression rates are skyrocketing, you have suicide rates skyrocketing, and the reason that is because those men weren't taught how to heal things. They also weren't taught how to feel things, and if you want to heal things, you got to feel things. We weren't taught this. This is the narrative with men. Be hard, be a dude, nut up, get on with it. Like, life's hard as a man. It is. And that's just a social construct. And so, and I can skip, I don't want to skip forward, but that's why I'm so emotionally intelligent, is because I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I didn't have it. And my intention, which I didn't know, was I'm building myself into the man that my little boy needed.
Oh, man. What's the biggest disability?
Yeah, I got the quote, right? The biggest disability is a bad mindset. That's it. There's money everywhere. There's resources everywhere. There's opportunity everywhere. But if your brain is not so good, you're going to have a not so good life. You know, I always mention you don't get the life you have, you get the life you focus on. That's why there's people with millions of dollars who are still pissed off and angry because they're always focused on the wrong thing or what's not right or it's not enough.
Yep.
And then you have people in a third world country who have way less than you and they're way happier than you. You're like, damn, who's really rich?
And they're kicking a can down the road
100%.
and just love their life.
100%.
Yeah, so I lean into this a lot with my fitness clients. So I have a background in fitness, have a gym, and we work a lot with obviously fitness clients, weight loss clients, and like they come in thinking that they need to do some exercise, right? Like I just need to come in here and move my body. I need to come in here and whatever. And really after years of this, I'm like, yeah, you got to do all that. But your mindset and your frames and how you're seeing the world and your level of awareness and all these things are so much more important than any bench press or any type of exercise that you can ever do. But to your point, we're not taught to lean into that. We're taught to avoid that. Like if you feel a certain way or you have certain opinion, like just leave all that alone and deal with it, right? Especially men. Like it's crazy the amount of men that I talk to who are so broken inside. And you can look at maybe their life looks okay, but everything's crashing around them. But they can't express it. Instead, they sedate, they watch porn, they do all the things, right? Yep. So I want to move from childhood. You talked about having suicidal thoughts, and I don't want to just skim over that because that's, again, mental health right now. What age did that start?
I'd say 14, 15.
Okay, so teenager.
You know, but it'd be in waves, right? Because like I was also as I got into high school, I got some really dope friends. Okay. You know, the wrestlers were my friends. So like I had this scary big friends. So
right.
I wasn't bullied. Like I'm from a small town. Everybody like knew everybody. So right. Like I wasn't like going to school and getting like beat up and spitballs in my face. Like I was, and my last name, like I had sisters and brothers that came through the high school, you know, so like the last name, they knew the last name. Right. Probably were like, I hope he's not like his brother, you know. Right.
So you had a squad.
Yeah. And so, that's the way it was in middle school and high school. But I had a great set of friends. And I think that's really important too, is like proximity, right? Like so I had a really amazing friend group that treated me normal. Yeah. Like that, like beat me up, like all the things. Right. Like it was very, very, very normal. So that helped with the conditioning as well.
Yeah, and I want you to get this, guys. So like proximity. If you're in a position that you're not happy with and you're not getting the results that you want in your life, you can look at the 5 people that you're surrounded by the most, and you're going to be the average of those 5 people, right? So like we always kind of skim over this. Well, yeah, I need to start my own journey of personal development and starting a business and moving myself forward, but I'm still going to hang with the same crew. Like, is that a good strategy?
I have an interesting take on this too. I have an interesting take. I think as you grow and as you elevate, people will distance themselves from you because you make them feel inferior because you're taking action on your dreams. But I also believe, on the other hand, is that there's some people that you keep around because they activate an inner child part of you. And if entrepreneurship or personal development was a race, they're just not as fast as you, and one day they'll catch up. So there's some people that like I don't cut off because like I love them. They pull out a specific side of me, they activate a specific side of me, and I have compassion for where they're at on their timeline and their journey. They're not toxic, right? But I'm not keeping toxic people in my life.
To clarify, right?
Like I'm not
not bashing you and telling you can't do what you want to do.
These are supportive people that love you. They're ride or dies.
They're just not there yet.
Yeah, they're just not there yet. And so like having compassion that they're just not there yet. But yeah, ultimately toxic people are totally cut. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the energy. I don't have the mental real estate to give you that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's important because if you come from a place of feeling like we both have, like you're not enough, you tend to give people space in your life that probably don't deserve it, right? Just as a like, I need to feel loved and I'm not in a position or have the posture to exclude people out of my life because I'm not worthy of that, right? Who am I to think? Like, and I know people like this. They run with toxic people because it makes them feel better and loved. And 100%. So for you to go from where you were to where you are, right, to where you are now, there had to be some shifts in the quality of people that you were hanging out with, right? So
100%. My big shift was when I left high school, I was like, I'm getting so far away from all of you people. You know, like literally, like it's so funny, and audience, I'm sure you can relate. Like the most popular kids in your school are probably deadbeats. I'm just like, oh yeah, bro, you had the significance and you were so cool in high school. Now these people are hitting me up like, no joke. If y'all see this, I'm just calling you out. But I did a post the other day that I was hiring, and I had the popular kids from my high school in my applications, like, application submitted, bro. I'm like, yo, where were you? Like, where were you 7 years of me building my business, bro? Like, so anyway, so I think my big thing, like, okay, so just to recap here, right? I became a wrestler. I became a varsity wrestler. That gave me a massive amount of confidence, right? Because now the identity upgraded. The identity upgraded because now I was labeled as an athlete, which, by the way, they tried to, the mainstream people tried to disarm that by saying, well, you're not a wrestler, like you're an adaptive wrestler. It's like, bro, I'm a wrestler. We have the same rule.
Like, I'll wrestle you right now.
Yeah, right? So I became a wrestler. At that time, the app Vine came out where you could post 6-second videos. I created a zombie prank that was the #1 video in the world. So I got famous as a senior. So now I'm getting significance. Now I'm the significant one. But what's pretty interesting is I have 1 million followers on Vine. I'm taking pictures with people, all the kids, and I'm sitting alone in lunch in my own high school because I won't falter to jump into a friend group that didn't accept me before.
Wow.
Literally, like me alone, didn't care, just everybody's on tables and I'm alone. Maybe there's 1 or 2 people, but it's just like me doing my thing. 1 million followers, famous online, and like, I'm a principal. I'm like a principal guy. Right. So it's like, yo, if you didn't mess with me then, like I'm not gonna mess with you now. Like I'm not doing that. My big shift though was I decided to, and there's a lot of other stories, but I decided to drop out and not go to college and pursue like my pranking and like a business.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So like friends went to college and then like I went away and did my own thing. So like I became this famous prankster. I moved to LA. I went broke in LA. I tried that. My brother called me and said, I'm addicted to heroin. Like, that was a pivotal moment. I came home.
Right.
Could have totally said like I failed. I went to LA and I failed. Right. Or I was like, yo, you moved across country with no legs of an arm. Like, who would do that? Like, this is insane. This is incredible.
I did it. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I did it.
So that was a win for me. And then while everybody was in college, I moved back home. I started to pursue bodybuilding. I moved to Florida. That's when I met Ratmir, and that's when I stepped into this whole different identity and then put my head down and built a business for 7 years while everybody was partying and drinking. All
right, so let's go back to wrestling because like I think one of the most impactful stories, and I'm just blown away by all the things, right? Like when I listen to your story, and I'm obviously a part of your coaching group, and I'm going through your course, and you share a lot of personal things there. But one of the things that jumps out to me, it's like, okay, you were born this way, you made it, you figured it out. But then all of a sudden you want to be a wrestler, which is already like, what the dude, like the dude does, how are you going to be a wrestler, right? Yeah. But you decide to do that. And you're so adamant about doing that you go to your parents. Guys, this is so good. You go to your parents and you say, I want to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Tell that story.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, something just came to me. I think my superpower is I was always delusional.
Thank God, right?
And it's all delusion until you do it.
Yeah.
So my whole life was delusion. He's delusional, and then it's like, oh, Nick did it again.
Wait, he did it.
Oh, there he did it again. Like I always tell people, like, watch me do this, and like, yeah, it's delusional now, but then I'm going to do it. So pain pushed me to wrestle.
Yeah.
And at this time, my arm was about 5 inches longer than it is now. My bone was going faster than my skin, so it was super sensitive. And the bottom line is, if I would have hit my arm hard enough, my bone would have came through my skin. So like I couldn't do much physical activities. Like I would always hide it, couldn't bump it into anything. Like it was really hindering the quality of my life. And I came home, and by the way, I guess I was always visualizing this like desirable outcome. Like I could see myself with like chicks because I was a wrestler, and I could see myself on the mat and like jacked up.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's
being
curious to know what drives that. There's always some things on the back end that are pushing,
right?
Yes.
So I have this compelling vision of what life's going to look like, and what you focus on, you feel. What you feel is your life. So if I'm focusing on this really good outcome, I feel it. I'm like, oh, like that would be so cool. And I asked my parents, I'm like, yo, can we cut my arm off? And they're like, what do you mean cut your arm off? And I'm like, you know, like, I don't know, like, can we do something about it? Like, I don't know what's out there, but there's got to be something out there.
It hurts. I want to wrestle. I can't bump it. What do we do
100%.
about it?
It hurts. It's destroying my quality of life. I want to become a wrestler. It's going to give me confidence. And they accepted it. They were like, yeah, let's do it. And just to give context, the reason why they accepted it so blindly, or like had some blind faith in me, is because when I was born, remember, like doctors wanted to abort me. They were like, no. They wanted to chop my finger off. They were like, it's not going to be useful. Let's just chop it off. So he just has like 2 nubs. They were like, no. They're like, okay, well, let's split his finger in 2 so he has 2 fingers. They were like, no. Then they were like, let's put rods in his quads and then turn it every day so we can lengthen his legs so maybe he can have prosthetics. They were like, no. All of the things they denied from the medical field because I didn't have a voice yet. So the moment that I came with my own voice and expressed my own solution, they were like, sure, buddy, let's run it.
Whatever you want.
Like, very supportive. So sophomore year, they amputate my arm. They laser 5 inches of the bone off. They pull skin from up on my shoulder over my arm. And I told Doc, I said, I need to be able to beat someone over the head with this arm. So, like, make sure you do a good job.
Yeah.
And I always say I was the happiest kid that just cut his arm off. You know, I go back to school. I got all these stitches. I'm like, hey, you know, cut my arm off, you know? Yeah. And that's when I told people. I was like, yo, I didn't tell anyone, too. Like, I kind of kept my vision to myself. It was like a sacred vision. I didn't tell, like, teachers, like, what I was doing. And so when I come back to school, they're like, what happened? I was like, I just, you know, cut my arm off. Like, amputated 5 inches. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to become a wrestler. And I think people are just like, he's insane. Like, I'm insane. Yeah, like, I'm literally insane. And I think you have to be insane, and I think you have to be delusional. And I don't think like an average person, or I don't want to do average things. I want to do things that are extraordinary, right? And so that was the thought process behind amputating my arm. I become a wrestler. Now I'm part of a community. So I'm with the boys. Yep. I'm one of the boys, right? I have a whole wrestling team. So, like, and I think my model of the world, wrestling is the most badass sport. So now I'm a badass. That's my identity. I'm an athlete. I'm going to practice. I'm in the singlet. I got a tattoo. Like, you know, I was getting a tattoo. Like, I was just reinforcing the identity, And actually at that point, like probably sophomore, junior year, like I got a girl. You know, like I had a girl, and she like loved me, and I broke her heart. That's another story for another time. But I did the thing. You know, like I was like, I proved to myself, and that's the thing. Like, let's go back to the foundation real quickly of your success. The foundation of your success is your confidence and your self-worth, because you'll never make more than you think you're worth. So many people undercharge because they don't think they're worth it, or no one's ever poured into them to show them that they were worth it. If you don't think you're worth the relationship, you'll get into the relationship itself, sabotage it. If you don't think you're worth the money, you'll make it, and then you'll blow it on things that you don't need. It's your identity and your thermostat, right?
Or the weight loss, or the whatever 100%. The goal is, you'll destroy it.
You'll destroy it. You'll sabotage it. And so, very simply, the formula to building confidence and self-worth is internally make a promise and follow through in it. Because most of you are just liars, right? Most of you, it's like, oh, I'm going to get sober, and then you don't get sober, and you reinforce that your word is bullshit anyway. Yep. Or you're like, oh, I'm going to start going to the gym, and then you don't go to the gym. You're like, yep, I'm a liar. I did it again. And when you lie once, what is it easier to do? Lie over and over and over again. And then so the cycle repeats, right? And so I just followed through on my word. Like, whether I shared my vision or I shared what I was doing with the world, like I followed through on my word. And that's what built me into that young savage as a wrestler. And then I was a viner, but I was getting significance that way and praise. And so that was like the catalyst to Nick coming out of this hole. But also, even with the significance and even with the likes and the followers, I like literally, if I had one bad interaction with a woman, I would tank.
This is it. It's the fact that you don't trust yourself because you've lied to yourself so many times, right? And we've all done it. It's like, if we want to move forward and we want to have some progress in our life, we've got to trust ourselves. And what you're saying is the way to do that is to make micro commitments even. Like, right? You don't have to say, hey, I'm going to go do this massive thing, and then you go out and do it. It could be, if I want to lose weight and I'm not losing weight and I can't figure out how to lose weight and I keep sabotaging any weight loss that I have, maybe it's just you just make a commitment to go to the gym for 5 minutes in the morning, but you don't miss it ever, right? And then it turns into 10. And then it turns into, well, maybe I'm just going to have a little bit healthier lunch, or whatever the goal is, right? Like, it's micro commitments that build confidence and self-respect that then continue snowball into us being able to do bigger and better things.
100%.
So, all right, so cool. So let's shift gears a little bit. So now we have this identity of we're a wrestler, we're a stud, we're hanging out with the dudes. They are embracing you because it's pretty badass to have a dude with no legs and one arm as a wrestler as part of the squad, right? So you have all this, you're having some success online. You decide that, hey, I'm gonna do this, like this speaking thing. Where does that come from? Because I've watched some of your videos, and for people that hear you speak, it's like, holy crap, man, this dude it just flows. Like it's just a natural God-given gift that he just has always had, and just he's lucky. Yeah. But I watched some of your YouTube videos, right? Yeah. And mad love, but you weren't the speaker then that you are now. So talk to me about that evolution and kind of how all that took place.
Yeah. So that was also a big driving force too for me. I was like very scared of like how I was going to become financially independent. You know, like that. My dad instilled that into me too, of like not to take handouts and not to like. Guys, like listen, like I could have easily just collected disability and people would have applauded me for it. Yep. They would have been like, of course, Nick. Or I could have been I could have been on drugs and they would be like, of course. Yeah. Like of course, like let Nick sue. Like look at him. Right. Life's so hard, right? So I was always, that was a big worry of mine of like, yo, how am I gonna feed myself? You know, like how am I gonna be financially independent? And my dad always told me, he's like, you could be a sports announcer, you could be a speaker. You know, he was already like trying to plant seeds, and I like didn't want to do either of those things. Yeah. And so I made some money with pranking, and then when I moved back home, I was like, okay, what's next? You know, like, Nick, what's next? Here's a reinvention, right? Another reinvention. I said, okay, I'm a prankster, it doesn't really fulfill me. I think people, you know, view me as a joke. Still want girls, still want them to love me. What if I got in good shape? Basically the light bulb was like, okay, Nick, you can't change no legs, one arm, but you can get jacked. And what if you did that? And I was like, I've never seen a man with no legs, one arm jacked, so I could probably monetize it and make money from it. I could probably promote supplements or be a part of a team. Right. And I got totally obsessed over the bodybuilding world. Like literally, going back to me being delusional, there was a point where I was certain that I was going to become Mr. Olympia. That's mind-blowing. Right. It probably would never happen, Nick, you know, old Nick, right? But it's like, that's so delusional. I literally told Jeremy Buendia, who was Men's Physique, my good friend, at his birthday party, yeah, I'm gonna become Mr. Olympia. And they just look at me and be like, you probably will. Like, you're kind of a scary dude now these days, Nick. Like everything that you say, you do. So, by the way, though, I was stacking wins. Let me just back up of what I just said. Like, y'all realize that, like, I told myself I was gonna become a wrestler, I did it. I told myself I was going to create viral videos. I did it. I told myself I was going to move to LA regardless of what I went broke. I did it. And then when I got back, I told myself and my family I was going to become a bodybuilder. Now with bodybuilding, there's delay because you can't be jacked overnight. Like I'm still working on it, right? Like I'm still working on the physique. And so imagine like a man with no legs, one arm goes to his family and like, yeah, I'm going to become a bodybuilder. They're like, okay, like, how are you gonna do this? And then they saw me like relentless, like meal preps and supplements and never missing a workout. And then my body started to change. And then I got shredded. And then I was posting that and I was building my following that way. And then I was paying bodybuilding accounts to post my content to build my following that way. Like I was making maybe $400 a month on YouTube. And I would take that 400 and I'd pay Instagram bodybuilding. It had like 2 million followers. I would pay the guy $400 to post me one time so I could just get exposure. So like, I don't even know, I guess I was doing something right. Like I don't know who taught me that, but I was doing it. Right. And so now I'm in better shape. What's pretty amazing about the physical body and your physique, it's one of the fastest ways where you can really touch and see manifestation because you are what you consume, right? You are what you think, but you also are what you consume. So when you change, like if you want to really see manifestation, change your physique. That'll give you some certainty. That'll give you some confidence. That'll give you some evidence of like, oh, I can actually change this avatar, right? So I started to change this avatar. And at that time, I had a man from Instagram who ran a meal prep company, he still does, and he said, hey, love your content, you want to tour Tampa, you know, my facility in Tampa. And I was like, great. And so I go out to Tampa and I'm like, this place is amazing. Is the weather always like this? He's like, yeah. And then everybody's healthy and there's healthy food. Like I'm from Jersey, it's cold, small town. And I go to this place and I'm like, I want to live here. It's a whole nother world. And so he's like, I'll give you a job. And so he gave me a job. I moved there. And that's when I was in a room, a mastermind. and I shared my story, and there was a man to the left that said, you know, you're going to be on stage with Tony Robbins one day. And I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't know what speaking is. I know nothing about entrepreneurship.
That's mind-blowing at this point to think about that. If you didn't even know who Tony Robbins was, right?
I didn't know anything. Law of exposure.
Yeah.
Once you're exposed, you can't be unexposed. But I didn't know anything about speaking. I knew nothing about business.
So he planted that seed. Ratmir planted that seed.
Yep.
Where'd it go from there?
Ratmir planted that seed. He said, I'll work for you for free. If you like the work we do, maybe one day we'll start a company together. 2 weeks later, he called me while I was in my customer service meal prep job that I hated.
For that company?
Yep, for that company. So he put me on. He gave me some income. I got my own place. And he was like, yo, you need to quit. We're going to go all in on this speaking thing. Like, if you're about it, like, we can't take meetings if you're in your cubicle.
Wow.
You know? And I said, okay. And I said, where, you know, what am I going to do? That's my income. He said, well, we can get your lease to someone else to pay your lease and move into your place, and you can move in on the couch for now. I said, okay. And so, you know, I moved in to their house on a couch. For probably a year or two, I built the business on the couch. No one knew who I was. I had no calendars booked. I had no meetings booked, no podcast booked, no nothing. Ground zero. And that was the start of building that company.
Just a dude that had a desire and a vision and some grit, who was, to most people's standards, would be at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. You're shifting gears again, entering into something completely new with no experience, no backing, no support, just a vision and a dream, right? Yeah. So I'm assuming that once you decided that, everything else was just, you lived happily ever after, right? Tony Robbins called you, he came and scooped you up, you became this amazing speaker, then that was it. Like, what was the evolution of that?
Yeah, the evolution of that was by the way, I stayed consistent with always working out. I don't miss training, right? So maybe diet sways, but I'm never missing training because it makes me feel good.
Let me hit on that real quick. So guys, you've heard me say on the podcast multiple times, if you want to change your life, any area of your life, get in the best shape of your life, right? If you want to improve your marriage, get in the best shape of your life. If you want to improve your finances, get in the best shape of your life. It's the only thing that I know of, aside from maybe a spiritual relationship, you know, whatever, but is getting in the best shape of your life is the only thing that I know of that has so much mileage and spills over so much into every other area. Like, successful people that I admire, it's part of their identity. Yep. It's not something that, and I tell my kids this, I'm like, hey, working out is not something that we do, it's who we are. Yeah. It's just part of who we are. Like, because without that, we can't do all these other things. So I want people to understand that you see that as valuable. Also, a dude with no legs and one arm values fitness because you understand the power that it has in every other area of your life.
100%. So and the reason being is because the pain of going backwards is more painful than the pain of moving forward. Mm. And so when you're in specific shape and then you know you're not in that shape anymore, that's more painful than just keep lifting. Mm-hmm. Y'all tracking? Yep. Right? So the pain of, imagine, I can't stop speaking.
Right. Right.
I can't stop speaking. Because if I stop speaking and I stop exercising the muscle, and then one day I'm like, yo, I forget how to speak, I'm gonna feel terrible. I'm like, yo, you were once the master. Identity. You were once the master, and now like you don't exercise that muscle. So training has always been the core principle for me. Food has been a worthy opponent. Yeah. So diet will sway, but training I never miss.
That's good. So now you decide to shift gears. You have this new vision for speaking. You're hanging out on Ratmir's couch. Yep. Then what?
Yeah, then it was really the things that we teach is like, hey, find someone who has the life and the results that you have and like study them. So like books and studying people's business models and networking with people. Like, I didn't even know what networking was. They were like, yo, Ratmir was always like, yo, we have a meeting. Yo, we're going to meet with this person. And we just pick their brain. Like any way that, and I guess I was the secret weapon because like, if Nick asks for you to like, hey, can we grab coffee? It's like, okay. You know, versus like, I guess someone who maybe is full body. So I did have some leverage and I would get to people that maybe I shouldn't get to. But we would always ask, we were always probing for knowledge. Like Ratmir and I have an inside joke. Like Ratmir's famous line is like, quick question, but it's like 50 minutes into the probing, you know, like he's just like hungry for knowledge. And so we were just hungry for knowledge, broke as a joke. Like, no
and you're
money.
Living where now?
I'm living in Tampa.
You're in Tampa now. Okay.
I'm living in Tampa. Okay. We're in a house. I'm paying like $600 a month to put into the mortgage. Like that's all I have. And Ratmir is just throwing me on podcasts and throwing me on stages. And like he's like, just share your story. You know, like he always told me that was just share your story. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just like tell them about that wrestling thing and tell them about this, like the same thing. You're like, because to me, it's just me.
It's just normal, dude.
Like, tell them that you drive a car. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, is that cool? He's like, bro. You know, like, so I didn't really even realize that it was cool. So he was like, yo, just share your story, share your story. So I kept sharing my story. And then eventually, with the following and the frame and the media kits and all this different type of stuff, and I got on some stages. I got paid. My first speaking engagement was $1,500, and I was like, "Yo, I'm rich.
Oh man,
like I'm never going back.
To
like
the moon,
this
baby.
is like I never have to work again. $1,500." And then I realized that that's not, you know, it wasn't a lot, but for me it was a lot. So started speaking a bunch, repetition, soaking up all the knowledge, studying amazing speakers, studying their business model, studying what they do, but for the longest time, like I've been in business 7 years and I feel like I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
My business model wasn't sustainable for the first 4 or 5 years. I was just a road warrior. What we taught, like trading time for keynote fees, money. Like that's it. So it was an evolution, but that was a bunch of networking, a bunch of collaborating, a bunch of, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, hundreds and hundreds of interviews, getting on stages, not knowing what I was doing. Like I just threw myself into it.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge something too, man. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at listening to this, guys. If from the outside looking in, if you look at this dude, you would say, man, you've got such an incredible story. Of course you're going to be a highly sought after speaker and coach and like, duh, right? But you're the same way. Like you have a story, and this is a big thing that I'm learning from you, is like, I feel the same way. I'm like, in your mind, you're going, well, do I really have anything to offer? Like, what am I going to say? Like, yeah, I drive a car, and yeah, I wrestled, and yeah, I've done all these things, but it's just who I am. Like, it's like, we devalue that because it's the norm for us. Yeah. And then other people are looking at you from the sidelines, and they're like, well, dude, you could do anything. Like, you could, with your story, it's amazing, right? So I want to encourage you guys, and I think you and I share the same belief system. It doesn't matter where you are in your life, what circumstances you're in, or how dramatic your story may be. You have an audience out there that needs to hear you. And I'm saying this for me more than I am for you guys. Like, you have a story that's going to resonate with a tribe of people that if you don't figure out how to tell that and get out of your own way and share some of those things, people could potentially die. Like, it's that serious.
That's leverage. Yep.
It's right. So like, we're all hung up on like, what are people, dude, this podcast, I told you, I was like, man, I'm nervous about this, bro. I love podcasting, but I was nervous about it. But the conversation I'm having with myself is like, it's not about you, dude. It's like somebody's going to watch that and see Nick's story and they're not going to commit suicide. Yeah. Somebody's going to watch and see Nick's story and go, hey, you know what? I thought I was having a bad day. I think I can suck it up now and go do what I need to do. Yeah. Like, transformational changes are going to happen because you're willing to take some time on a Sunday and sit here and have this conversation with me. Guys, same thing with you. If you feel called to do something more and you feel called to share your story and you feel called to like be an asset in other people's lives, lean into that. Because you don't have to have no legs and one arm to make a tremendous impact on people. Like, you just heard the dude say, well, I just really didn't feel like I had anything to offer, which is kind of comical, right? It's like, same thing with us talking to dude yesterday, 100%. And we're going, you are the product, bro. Like, you've got everything you need. Go help people. So it's really important, guys. Like, the whole imposter syndrome is a real thing. But I just admire you for leaning into that. And then also teaching other people that, hey, like, you're worthy. Like, take your shot, have the conversation. And my whole thing is like, take the next step, have the conversation, don't get attached to the outcome. Yeah. Right?
100%.
Cool. So we are grinding it out. We finally get some speaking gigs. We get in some rooms with some really cool people. I love the story about like the Mylett thing and some of these things. Like, you are finally at the peak of the pinnacle of your success. And you shared the story yesterday and I want you to hit on it. And then you find yourself depressed, right? Like, you just went on this tour with Tony Robbins, which would be the peak of anybody's success. And you find yourself in Mexico or somewhere, in Bali, yeah. Okay. And you're just like, what is this all for? Speak to that.
Yeah, I was business model sucked, right? Yeah. We put it together, like we always joke, it's like, bubble gum and shoestring, like put it together. And so I was on a tour, we were doing massive events with Tony. So I did Australia, I did Singapore, and then we were supposed to celebrate in Bali. Got it. At that time I had an additional business partner. The business model wasn't good, the pay structure wasn't good. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And so there were some things that just weren't aligned. And we were grinding. I was on the road 80% of the year. I didn't see my family. Like, we were hustling. And I got to Bali and get to the Airbnb, and they're like, you know, they're fired up, you know, and they're like, they want to go do things. And I open up my bank account. I'm like, I don't even have anything to show for this.
Oh,
shit.
man.
I don't even have, like, if I look back at how many events I've done and how much, like, this ain't right.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know what's going on here. And so I was just like, I was burnt. I was depressed. I'm like, this isn't worth the amount of money that I'm making. And I definitely wanted to quit. And after that, shortly after like COVID hit, you know, we moved our company to Vegas. So I was like, and by the way, like, why didn't I quit? Because what am I gonna do? Go back to average? Right. You know, and that's the big thing too, is I always tell people I'd much rather be in the game of business than on the sideline, just like hoping or wishing or, you know, watching or hating. You know,
even
it's
if
like,
you're failing your way
even if
through
I'm
it.
eating shit, even if I'm like even if I'm under a bridge broke, at least I'm pursuing the seed that is in my heart, my soul. Like, at least I'm pursuing that thing. How many people can say that they're really pursuing the thing that they want to do? Like, not many people. So at least I'm in the game and I'm getting roughed up, and like, it's just part of the game. But I was at a super low point. Little redirects from the team, you know, helped me get out of that.
Yeah.
But then I moved to Vegas right before COVID hit. COVID destroys that business. Nobody's speaking. There's no events. 2 weeks to flatten the curve leans into 2 years, right? And that was a pivotal moment as well, because there's a lot of people that were like, okay, I'm just gonna wait till the world comes back to normal. And I looked at Ratmere, I was like, we're gonna go broke. We're gonna file bankruptcy. Like, we gotta figure something out. And that's when I realized that I needed to evolve as a speaker, that I was an average speaker. I needed to become a transformational speaker. I need to make offers. I need to have products. I need to have services. I need to give something away that is deeper than just my stage performance.
What you're teaching me is a whole art and a whole thing. Like, there's a big difference between a speaker and a transformational speaker. Yeah. Completely different value that you're giving, completely different opportunity to earn, like all those things. So.
100%. So then we moved into like the whole digital marketing, like how to market, how to sell, how to sell from stage, how to make offers, how to serve people at a deeper level. And even that, like, the stuff that I'm teaching you, that stuff took me up until like probably 10, 15 months to like actually feel good about it, right? A lot of offers flopped, a lot of products flopped, a lot of opportunities didn't work, a lot of a lot of things just didn't go the way. And I finally feel that I'm at a good point. So like, just so everybody to get that lesson is like, I'm 7 years into business. I'm 7 years into business. I also believe each offer is a different business. So that's a good frame, right? So because like, we can get so like, oh man, like, I've been doing online courses for 3 years. It's like, no, you've only been at 8 months of your speaking offer. You know, Ratmere reminds me, he's like, hey, this is only 8 months. So learning those skills. So now like, I'm able to sell from stage. But like, all of these moments, there was pressure where it's either like I die in a sense, or I go broke, or I figure out these new skill sets. I either elevate my game or I go back to just average. And so I'm constantly elevating my game, learning how to sell from stage, learn how to do virtual events, learn how to make offers and transform people at a deeper level, course creation, like all the stuff that we're teaching. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, oh, I think I know what I'm doing. But it took me 7 years.
But tomorrow you'll have a different thing, and you'll start pursuing that and go, hey, you know what? The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Yeah. Right. So everything is always happening. What's your quote?
To me.
It's always happening.
I meant for me.
For you.
Versus
right?
to me.
You said yesterday, and I love this. It was things are either working on me or for me, but they're always working.
Always working.
Right? So that's the message of this whole show, guys, is like, you're always going to go through peaks and valleys. You're going to be on a peak, and then you're going to go into a pit. And that is the evolution of life. The difference between someone like Nick and someone who throws in the towel is they understand that, they have a level of awareness around that, and they're willing to get back in the game and understand that, hey, this might not be, it might not seem like it's working for me, but it's working on me. It's developing me into a new person with new skill sets that deserves the success that I'm after. Because you got to earn it. You can't just like, oh, it's all yours because the universe came in and blessed you with, no, like, you have to become a different person. Your identity has to change and shift in order to be able to receive that. Right?
100%. I also, now that I look back at my journey, I'm glad that I'm getting rich slow versus fast, because I would have burned the money. Like, I would have just sabotaged it, because I mean, you look at like professional athletes, like they haven't become the person identity-wise that can handle those financials, and they typically go broke, or they need someone to be advised with. So understanding that if your pace is slow, it's like perfect.
Yeah,
you know,
it's working on you.
It's perfect pace, and you're becoming the person that can handle that type of money or handle that type of value.
What would you say to someone who is listening to this and they feel inspired and like they have this desire to do something, but they just don't really, they don't know where to go, or they have all these like self-limiting beliefs? Like, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say first, find someone who has the life and the results that you want, and learn. If you have to pay, but if you can get free YouTube videos, like just start immersing in the positive content, because you can borrow a belief from a mentor, right? Like if you don't believe in yourself, like you could borrow my belief in you. So that's
just
the first
why
thing.
I'm working with you. That's a big reason why I have coaches. Is you can look at me and go, Jay, you have a gift. And I can't see that gift. No. But I respect you enough to go, oh, maybe I'll believe him, and maybe I'll go take the action. It's ridiculous, but we're all at some level looking for permission. 100%. Right? So it's powerful to get around people that can give you that.
So I'd say that is get around people that can give you that, get around information. Like that's the other thing we said yesterday is this is a game of information, right? And if someone's doing something at a higher level, it's not because they're essentially better than you. It's because they've been exposed to the strategy before you have. Right? So start to get curious and like, what do they know that I don't? And the most dangerous information is the information I don't know. So let me go get some more information. The purpose has to be greater than the pain, right? And so you need some sort of calling. You need some sort of deeper reason of why you're doing what you're doing that's going to pull you out of bed when you don't want to do it, right? And that's called the compelling vision, or your pull. So I'd say that's really important. And then also understand that in a more aggressive way, your ancestors are looking down at you, and they're either like, you're doing a phenomenal job, or you're doing terrible. You know, and to get real like raw is your ancestors didn't go through the Holocaust, and they didn't fight off saber-toothed tigers, and they didn't go over on the boat to get new opportunity for you to moan and complain about the insignificant problems that are getting in your way. And then last but not least is you need to get freedom. And I essentially believe money is freedom. It's pretty interesting that they print it and we have to work for it, but anyway. But I would say that money equals freedom, and the most selfish thing that you could do is be broke, because you can only take care of yourself.
Let's go, man. So good. Man, I appreciate this. This has been gold. Guys, I hope you found value in this. I do want to leave you with this one last thought. And Nick and I agree on this. Every single family lineage has a person in that family that is supposed to be the one that's going to break generational curses that have been in place for generations upon generations. They're the person that is supposed to do things differently. And guys, if you listen to this podcast and you're engaged in personal development, it's because you have a seed inside of your heart, something inside that's telling you you were created for greatness and you were supposed to do more. And guys, I want to challenge you with this. If you have that, you might be that one. And I really I want you to just really like resonate on this message today, and like look at Nick's story. And if you're not able to remove the excuses from your life, let him remove the excuses from your life, and lean into that feeling, guys. I know that I'm the one for my family that's going to break these chains and remove these bondages that's been there for so long. And I have a feeling that if you're listening to this or watching this, you have that feeling as well, and I just want you to lean into that. Nick, listen, brother, I love you. I respect you.
Love you too, brother.
I appreciate this so much. I look forward to continuing to grow our relationship and our friendship and crushing some stages together. Thank you,
brother.
Awesome.
Signing out.
Cool.